You wake up and the first thing that hits you isn't light. It's smoke. Not the clean campfire kind. This is thick, low-hanging, eye-watering smoke with nowhere to go, because the hole cut into the roof above the central fire pit was partially blocked by frost overnight. Your lungs tighten before your eyes are even open. You cough, and so does everyone around you, because you are not sleeping alone. You are on a raised earthen bench pressed against the inner wall of a longhouse shared by 3 generations of a family, their livestock, and whatever vermin settled in overnight. Welcome to your first 60 seconds in the Viking Age. Before you stand, understand your body's situation. Depending on season and region, and we are placing you in Scandinavia, the temperature inside that longhouse before the fire is stoked back to life could be just above freezing. The straw beneath you is damp. The woolen blanket smells of lanolin, smoke, and accumulated sweat from every previous night everyone in that building has slept under it. Washing it is not a daily option. Soap, as you understand it, doesn't exist here in any convenient form. A mixture of lye and animal fat is what passes for a cleaning agent, and it is reserved for the body on bath day, not for bedding. Vikings were, relative to many of their European contemporaries, not the filthiest people in the historical record. Archaeological evidence confirms they combed their hair, cleaned their teeth with small picks, and bathed more regularly than their English neighbors during the same period. But more regularly than early medieval England is a bar so low that your modern immune system is completely unprepared to clear it. The water used for bathing is cold, drawn from a stream or well, and shared. The combs are made from bone or antler, and never sterilized between uses. The sleeping quarters are shared with animals whose waste accumulates on the floor below your bench. Lice and fleas are not an occasional inconvenience here. They are a constant fact of life, and everyone around you is carrying them too. You are hungry. That is the second dominant sensation after the smoke, and it will stay with you for the entire day. What is available depends entirely on the time of year and what the household's food stores look like. If it is late winter, and in Scandinavia, late winter is brutal in ways the calendar cannot fully communicate. The barrels of preserved fish, salted meat, and dried legumes packed in autumn are running thin. The rye flatbread baked yesterday is hard enough to damage a careless tooth. The skyr sitting in a clay vessel near the fire is getting sharper by the day. You eat it anyway, holding a wooden bowl, using your fingers and a knife you keep on your person at all times, because utensil sets are not distributed here. You eat close to the heat because there is no proper table in the way you imagine. Now understand your position in this society before you do anything else. Your survival odds depend on it more than any physical skill you could bring from the modern world. Viking Age Scandinavian society was deeply and practically hierarchical, jarls at the top, powerful chieftains who commanded warriors and longships. Below them, carls, free farmers who owned or leased land, held legal rights, and could speak at the thing. Below them, doing the hardest and most dangerous work for none of the reward, were the thralls. If you have just arrived with no land, no kin, no reputation, and no weapons, the category you most resemble is the one at the bottom. Being a thrall is not a metaphor. It is a legal and social reality enforced by the full weight of this culture. Thralls could be captured in raids, born into bondage, or forced into it through debt. No legal rights, no property, no voice at the assembly. Their testimony was legally worthless regardless of what they witnessed. Fed the minimum required to remain functional, worked from before dawn to after dusk, bought and sold as readily as livestock. If you arrived in this world as a stranger with no family connection, no introduction from a trusted person, and no demonstrable value, the most likely response is not hospitality. It is an assessment of what you can do and how much you are worth. Assume for the sake of your survival odds that you are a carl, a free farmer sitting in the middle of the hierarchy. That makes your day only slightly less brutal. You have land to tend, animals to care for, fences that need mending, wood that needs splitting. The tools you work with are heavy, inefficient by any modern standard, and unforgiving of inexperience. An iron axe used for splitting firewood is not sharp in the way you expect. It relies on weight and repetitive motion distributed across a handle your hands are not yet conditioned to grip correctly. If your hands have not been hardened by years of this labor, they will blister in the first hour. Your back will ache by midday. There is no scheduled break, no occupational safety consideration, and no one who will notice if you are struggling unless you fail visibly at something that matters to the household. The longhouse deserves more of your attention before you get comfortable treating it as shelter. This is not the warm, torchlit mead hall of fantasy. The average farming family's longhouse was a single long structure, sometimes up to 30 meters end to end, divided internally between a living area on one side and a byre on the other. In winter, the animals were brought inside. Not symbolically, literally. Cattle, goats, and sheep kept at the far end, separated from the family by a partition that does nothing to contain the smell or the sound. Their combined body heat helped keep the interior temperature survivable during the coldest months. You are, in a very practical sense, sharing your bedroom with cows tonight, and every night until spring. Your modern immune system, shaped by vaccines, antibiotics, and a lifetime of carefully managed pathogen exposure, is about to encounter a world it has never trained for. Dysentery from contaminated water sources is common enough to be unremarkable. Intestinal parasites are nearly universal in the archaeological record. Analysis of latrine areas from Viking Age settlements consistently reveals roundworm and whipworm in the soil. Respiratory infections thrive in smoky, damp, cold interiors. A cracked tooth, the kind a dentist resolves in an hour today, is a potential death sentence by infection here. You have no antibiotics. You have no anesthetic beyond whatever the local healer can brew. You have a practitioner who might try to draw out the infection using heat, herbs, or methods that carry their own serious risks. Violence in this world is not something you observe from a safe distance. It is ambient, woven into the legal and social fabric in ways that give every interaction a weight that modern daily life mostly does not carry. The concept of honor, drengskaper, is not a poetic ideal from the sagas. It is a survival mechanism operating in real time. A man who allows a public insult to go unanswered loses standing. Lost standing means lost alliances. Lost alliances mean no one stands beside you when conflict arrives. And in this world, conflict will arrive. Disputes over land, animals, debts, and perceived disrespect are settled through the assembly. Yes, but also through personal challenge, blood feuds that cross generations, and violence that the law accommodates rather than prevents. You will miscalculate this at least once today. The Thing, the Regional Assembly of Free Men, is one of the most important institutions you will encounter. As a Carl, you have the right to attend and to speak. This sounds like democracy, and in a narrow technical sense it is. But understand who is absent from this framework entirely. Women have limited standing, thralls have none, and outlaws can be killed by anyone without legal consequence. And understand who dominates the agenda regardless. The Jarl who arrives at the assembly with a dozen armed followers backing his position. The Thing is not a neutral court. The man with more land and more loyal warriors behind him is heard differently than the man who stands alone. If you are in a dispute with someone of higher standing, the system will not deliver justice the way you expect the word to work. The popular image persistently gets one thing wrong. Raiding was not the daily occupation of the average Scandinavian man. Most people farmed, most people fished. Raiding was seasonal, concentrated in summer months, and conducted by men who could afford a share in a ship or were recruited by a chieftain with the resources to mount an expedition. But this does not mean the violence of raiding does not reach you. Rival chieftains raided each other's coastal settlements. Living within reach of the sea during certain periods meant living with the knowledge that armed strangers could arrive with very little warning, and the time for any organized defense to respond was measured in minutes under ideal conditions. If you want to be a warrior, let us address what that actually requires. A quality iron sword in the Viking Age represented roughly the value of 1 or 2 cows, a significant fraction of a farming family's entire annual wealth. A helmet was similarly expensive. Chainmail represented a fortune that most men in this world never accumulated in a lifetime. The majority of Viking Age fighters did not go to battle in the full romantic armor of popular imagination. They fought with what they could afford, typically a spear, the most common weapon of the period by a wide margin, a round shield of planked wood faced with leather, and a knife. The training required genuine physical conditioning that began in childhood. Modern practitioners of historical combat reconstruction consistently find that sustained shield wall engagement empties participants physically within 5 to 10 minutes. You have not built the base for this. Now put yourself on the water, because the sea is central to this culture. The longship is a genuine engineering achievement. Flexible, fast, built to handle open ocean conditions that larger vessels of the period could not navigate. It is also completely open to the sky. No cabin. No covered shelter from rain or wind during travel. You row when the wind is wrong. You bail water when the sea finds its way in, which it does regularly. You sleep on your sea chest, the personal storage container that also serves as your rowing seat, under a shared animal skin awning rigged when conditions allow. The North Atlantic and the North Sea are not forgiving bodies of water. The temperature of the open water during much of the navigable season can kill an unprotected person through cold shock within minutes of immersion. Navigation relies on sun position, star observation, swell direction, seabird patterns, and accumulated knowledge held by your navigator. You have no instrument that tells you where you are. This world is not secular, and that is not a neutral fact. The Norse cosmological framework, Odin, Thor, Freya, the Norns who spin fate, is not mythology to the people living here. It is the actual operating system of reality as everyone around you understands it. Fate is fixed. What happens to you was always going to happen to you, and the only response this culture values is courage in the face of it. A man who shows fear visibly at the wrong moment is not simply losing a fight. He is failing in a cosmic and social sense at the same time, in front of everyone who will remember it. The concept of dying well, with your weapon in hand, in circumstances that could be spoken of honorably, is genuinely believed by the people around you to determine what becomes of you after this life ends. Add winter to everything you have already been managing. Proper Scandinavian winter, where daylight shrinks to a few hours and the temperature drops well below freezing for weeks without interruption. The work does not stop because the cold is severe. Animals still need feeding and watering every day. Water sources need to be broken open when they freeze overnight. Firewood must be brought in continuously to keep the interior survivable. The days are short, the stores are being consumed by every person and animal in the building, and the calculation that begins in late autumn, whether there is enough food and fuel to reach spring, is not theoretical. It is urgent arithmetic that everyone in the household is silently running. People died in hard winters during this period, consistently enough that seasonal starvation was a real fear woven into the culture rather than an abstract historical footnote. Consider the smell. Not just the smoke of the morning or the animals sharing your wall at night, the smell of people who have not bathed in weeks, whose clothing is saturated with labor sweat, fire smoke, and sustained animal contact. The smell of the midden outside the settlement where food waste, animal waste, and human waste accumulate across months. The preserved fish that permeates every surface in a coastal settlement, regardless of how far from the barrels you stand. The whale oil burning in the lamps, producing a thick organic heaviness that coats the back of the throat. Historical scent reconstruction research suggests that pre-modern living environments were dominated by combinations of organic decay, combustion, and animal proximity that contemporary people find nearly intolerable after the first few minutes of honest exposure. Belonging to a community in this world is not a social preference. It is a survival requirement with no alternative. The individual who exists outside a kin network, outside a lord's active protection, outside the web of reciprocal obligation that holds communities together, is exposed in a way no modern analogy captures cleanly. There is no state to appeal to above the chieftain's authority, no police force to call, no emergency infrastructure waiting to respond. What protects you is your reputation, your kin group's standing, your lord's practical interest in your continued productivity, and the obligations you have built over years of being present, useful, and reliable. A stranger with no name anyone knows, and no history anyone can verify is a problem to be assessed rather than a person to be welcomed. Night falls early in Scandinavia for most of the year, and when it does, you enter a darkness that modern life has made genuinely difficult to reconstruct in the imagination. The whale oil lamps and the central fire provide light that is warm, limited, and directional. It extends only so far from the source and leaves everything beyond its reach in a darkness that is complete when the sky is overcast and the moon is absent. Outside the longhouse on a night like that, the blackness is total. Sounds you cannot identify take on a threat weight that daylight removes. The distance to the nearest neighboring settlement, often measured in miles even in relatively populated coastal regions, is not a walk you would make in darkness without a very good reason and a torch that the wind will fight you for. Consider also the psychological weight of living inside this world without the buffer systems that modernity has built so completely around you that you have stopped noticing them. There is no private entertainment to retreat into, no screen, no music on demand, no personal space with a door you can close. The stories told at the fire, the games played in the hall, the social performance of wit and courage at the mead bench. These are the entertainment, and they are all public. Status and belonging are performed continuously, witnessed by everyone you share a building with. A bad day is not something you process in private. It is witnessed, evaluated, and remembered. The inner life that modernity has trained you to treat as yours, the right to withdraw, to recover privately, to be anonymous in your failures, does not exist as a concept here. The numbers, when you look at them plainly, are honest about what you are facing. Life expectancy at birth in Viking Age Scandinavia averaged somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 years, pulled hard downward by childhood mortality that was severe by any modern measure. If you survived to adulthood, you had a real statistical chance of reaching your 50s. But the road there was lined with the kind of ordinary death that modern medicine has quietly made invisible. Infection from wounds trivial to treat today, respiratory illness nurtured by smoky interiors across a lifetime, complications during childbirth with no intervention available, starvation in hard winters when stores ran short. The bodies recovered from Viking Age burial sites show healed injuries alongside chronic joint damage, dental disease, intestinal parasites, and trauma that modern care would have resolved in days. So here you are, at the close of your 24 hours. You made it through the smoke of the first waking, the cold and the shared heat of animals and strangers pressed together for warmth, the hard bread, and the silent arithmetic of whether the stores would hold. Through the labor that had no end, the ambient violence that required no announcement, the darkness that arrived early and stayed long. You navigated, however poorly, the invisible grid of obligation and honor and belonging that determined whether you were a Carl with standing or a resource with none. The Vikings of the sagas in the screen are not wrong because they are dramatic. They are wrong because they make it look like you could step into that life and survive on attitude and novelty. The reality is quieter than the films, dirtier, colder, and so much more socially complex than any raid scene has ever shown you. Survival here was not an adventure anyone was narrating. It was a daily renegotiation with a world that had no particular interest in keeping you in it.